Hello everyone, this is Reza and welcome to Intermediate Rigging series. In this series of videos, we're going to target advanced rigging workflows and more efficient pipeline-friendly rigging tricks. So if you feel like that you're new to rigging, please make sure to watch my Rigging for Beginners playlist on YouTube first, as we target more basic tools and principles in those videos. Now in this video, I'm going to talk about how to create advanced foot roll for our characters using IK handles. And this system is very robust for characters' foot movement, and steps in the tutorial are very easy to follow. Now I'm using Survival Man done by amazing Mr. Michael Barrison, and he was generous enough to allow me to use his model for these videos. I'll put the link to his profile and his works in the description below, so make sure to check him out. Now, throughout the tutorial, I'll be using my own naming convention that I used for rigging for beginners skeleton video, so check that out if you're curious as why I'm using this naming convention. And of course, these type of instructions do change based on the pipeline, studios, and even the type of project you're working on. Now I'm gonna go ahead into character and hide all the accessories. And then I'm gonna switch to side view, and of course, make sure wireframe on shaded is on if you would like to see the lines on the character, and of course go to X-ray joints. For simplicity, I'm just going to switch to wireframe and need to be in my rigging menu set, go to skeleton, create joints, and I create my leg joint. So I'm going to start where the hips is located, and I'm going to go to knees and then to ankle, around here where the ball roll is, which is around here, and of course end it where the toe is, so I can have the toe joint. I'm going to shift click to select the joints. I'm going to go to rigging shelf. I have my local rotation axis on the shelf, so I'm going to enable it. And we're going to check the orientation, make sure everything is okay, and of course it's not. You can see that Z is pointing this way and it's pointing that way. One thing that I got right is X down the chain, so that looks good. The only one that is not down the chain is the end joint. We are not going to skin that, so we kind of don't care, and you can always go and zero out its orientation. So I'm just going to select the first joint, move tool, and bring it where you think it's going to work for you. So something around this area. Try to target the center of the character. Now, before we look after the orientation of this chain, let's go ahead and fix the orientation of each joint. There are many plugins to assist us with that. I'm just going to go and use the good old joint orient tool. It's in the skeleton orient joint option box. Now I'm going to select all the joints here, and what we're going to do, the primary axis, we want that to be X, of course X down the chain. The secondary axis, which is pointing forward, I want that to be Z. And secondary axis word orientation, I want that to be Z, and I'm going to go ahead and apply. Now if I look at the chain, X is down the chain, Y is side, and Z is pointing towards the camera, which is the right orientation. The very end joint, you can just go ahead and fix its orientation as well. We're not going to skin that, but just to be clean about everything, we're going to do that as well. And only now it's a good idea to just go ahead and fix the orientation for each joint. We place the thigh joint and we just go down the chain, and so I'm just going to rotate, and it's a good idea to always go to top and make sure things are looking okay. I'm going to switch back to side, bring this joint outside the geometry, and have a look at the chain one more time. It's looking pretty good. So it's preferred not to have any orientation or rotation value on the first joint. But again, you can always work with the joint orient to keep the rotation channel clean. For example, if you're working on a creature, sometimes the situation calls for it to have orientation of the thigh joint. But in this case, I really didn't need to do that. Now I can select everything and toggle off local rotation axis. Now let's rename things. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my old naming convention, JNT-L thigh 01. Just going to copy that. Going to use JNT knee 01, JNT ankle 01, JNT L ball 01, it's your ball roll, and JNT E for end joint L toe 01. Now, before you make the IK handle, I'm going to click the selection, go to create IK handle in its option box. Make sure rotate plane is selected. We want rotate plane to be the IK handle for the thigh chain. So click on the thigh, click on the ankle, and we have our rotate plane. I'm going to place the character on a display layer so I can toggle it on and off every time I want to. So character layer 1, probably I'm going to reference it as well. And I'm going to toggle this off because I'm about to show you a trick. Now, IK handle is done. I'm just going to call this rotate plane RP IK underscore L underscore leg 01. I'm going to copy the name and rename the effector as well. So effector 01, and I'm going to remove 01 from the leg for the effector. So I have both nodes named properly. Now, I would like to set up the pole vector control. And again, I'm using the same old script that I had for the controls, just something that I use. But again, there are many, many more online available. I put the link in the description below in case if you want to retrieve this again. We use the exact same thing for character rigging for beginner series. Now I'm going to shift right click, go to create polygon tool. I'm going to hold down V to select 2 points, and I'm going to click on the thigh, click on the knee, and click on the ankle, and I'm going to create a polygon. So if I go here, I do have a polygon. I'm going to press W to bring the gizmo and hold down D and C to snap this to the curve. So C snaps it to the curve, and again the shortcut for it is C, but again you can always click on this button and snap it to the curve. Now you can see the pivot has been snapped to the curve, holding down D and C, and I can kind of slide it on the curve. That's exactly what I want. That's great. I'm going to select the polygon here and go to scale tool, and I'm just going to scale that polygon. Now this vertex here is going to be our pole vector, maybe something around 9 units. I'm going to bring back this script, and what should we use for our pole vector? I might actually use diamond, and I'm going to color it red and move it up and probably snap it to the point that I have. So holding down V and snap it to this point. I'm going to reshape this. That's better. Now we don't need the polygon anymore, so I can just select that polygon that we created and get rid of it. And bring the character back. And you can see this knee control actually is pointing at the knee for the character. So that's one way of aligning this control. In the other tutorial, I showed you a different way when you snap the controller and then you slide it back. That's another way of doing this, of course. Now, as usual, you would like to freeze transform on this, and I'm going to call this CTRL L knee 01. That's where we plug the pole vector to the IK handle. So let's do that. I feel like it's a bit too big, this controller here. I'm just going to select and put 0.8. That should do it. So I'm going to select the freeze transform. Now I'm going to select the driver and select the driven, which is the IK handle, the rotate plane IK handle that we created. I'm going to go to constrain and pole vector. So there's no offset. Everything works beautifully. Now I'm going to select the control, go to create annotation. With no annotation, I'm just going to press OK. That creates a locator and the annotation, the actual arrow. I'm going to bring the arrow a little bit closer here. And I'm going to select the bone. I'm going to select the annotation, control selected, and do a simple point constraint. So it actually points towards the knee. Now we don't want to see the locator, so I'm just going to select it, go to local scale for X, Y, Z, and press 0. So it's there, but it's sort of invisible. And of course, as usual, I don't want anything unnamed. So I'm just going to copy the name, bring this here, and I'm going to call this locator L knee 01. And this is going to be guide L knee 01. Of course, with the guide L knee selected, I can always go to edit and channel control, and I look for template, bring it over and set the template to 1 so I can't select it. I do see it. If I change the background, I do see it, but I can't select it. It's just for display purposes. Now, if I select the knee joint, I should be able to orient the knee using the pole vector constraint, and everything is working just fine. Now, before we wrap up this video, let's go ahead and create our reverse footlock chain. I'm going to go to, and we're going to have reverse foot bank L, R, heel, pivot, toe, ball, and we end this where the ankle is. So with that in mind, I'm just going to go and create foot bank L, foot bank R, heel, pivot, and then I hold V to snap to toe, ball, and then end it where the ankle might be. I press enter, switch back to perspective, and it's always a good idea to change the radius so we don't get the skin chain confused with the reverse footlock chain. So I'm going to hold down shift click on joint 1, select all joint 1 to joint 7, and again there's no right or wrong. You can make it smaller or you can make it bigger. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you are going to hide it. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to make it just a tad smaller. And of course, as usual, we are going to go to display and drawing override, and we are going to color it so it's much easier to spot. Now let's name them really quick before we fix the orientation. So as usual, RF, JNT, L for left, right for right, and the nature of the bone. So RF, JNT, L bank R, because this bone is in the right hand side of the left foot, 0, 1. The other one is RFJNT bank L 01. This one is RFJNT L heel 01. Going to copy the name. JNT L pivot. JNT L toe 01. JNT L ball 01. And eventually JNT E heel ankle 01. Now what I usually do to make sure that everything is working for us, I always go and snap the L bank, hold down V and snap it here. I'm gonna switch to object mode so I can kind of slide it that way. I'm gonna select the L and ball and press the P key, and that kind of enforces the orientation. Make sure that the orientation for the first joint is correct. Then I'm gonna go press Shift P to unparent, and with all of these joints selected, only then I'm gonna go to skeleton, orient joint, and we pretty much want to follow the same orient, so we are gonna do that. Now it's time to bring this to the position that we want. I'm gonna go to top view. It always helpful to see things in top view. I can see right off the bat that the heel is far back, holding down D, moving it forward, and these are all cosmetic changes, some of them of course. Now for this guy, I'm going to hold down the D and V. We want to snap it right at the center of the toe chain. Same thing we are going to do with the ball roll. So these two ball rolls should be on the same pivot. So I'm going to select the RF joint, hold down D and V and snap it to the ball roll, which is JNT ball. Things are looking good now. Now, one thing I forgot to do is to select the ankle, and of course we won't like to snap that to the ankle. So everything works for us beautifully. This will drive the ankle, this will drive the toe, and this will drive the ball roll. These two are in charge of banking the foot, and this is the heel roll, which does foot tap for the character. Now it's time to bring our foot control. I'm going to select and run the script. There should be one for foot control, so I'm just going to bring it over, and I'm going to spend a few minutes only to reshape this. Again, the idea is not to spend too much time. As long as it's easy to select for the animators, that should do the trick really. I'm going to immediately call this CTRL L foot 01 and freeze its transformation. Now, as usual, we want to be organized, so I'm going to select our reverse foot chain, shift select the foot control and press the P key so everything is within our foot control nice and clean. I'm going to select the foot control and copy the name and press Ctrl G on it and put it on a group. So we call this the same name, foot control underscore GRP01. Now for the foot control, I can go ahead and lock and hide its scale. I don't really need to see it. I probably can do the same thing for the knee control. Go ahead and lock and hide its scale value. Now, of course, I want this to be red. Just a matter of single clicking here. You can always go to drawing override and change the color that way. And of course, you need to make sure that the pivot for the control should be at the ball roll. So just hold down V and drag it to the ball roll. Now it's time to tie our foot chain and reverse foot lock to our foot control. So when we move our foot control, everything else should follow. There's a really interesting method presented by Perry Layton that I would like to present to you. So all credits to him, and that is through IK handle, but not a rotate plane IK handle, a single chain IK handle. Now with that said, I'm going to go to skeleton, create IK handle option box, and I'm going to pick single chain instead of rotate plane. With that, I'm going to expand my thigh joint and select the ankle, control select the ball, and make the first IK handle. I'm going to select the IK handle again, this time from ball to toe, and make my second single chain IK handle. Let's rename this really quick. So the first one is going to be single chain IK underscore L underscore ankle 01. Gonna copy the name, paste this here, and that's gonna be ball 01. I'm gonna use the same name and rename the effector as well. Now that's done, it's time to parent them in. Now I have an RP chain and two single chains. So let's go ahead and expand our control foot group to reveal all the reverse foot lock chain. That's actually fairly straightforward. You select the RPIK, control select the RFJNTE L ankle 01 and press P key. And then single chain IK for the ankle to the reverse ball roll, press the P key. And lucky last, ball IK to the reverse toe, press P. Now let's put everything to a test. If I select the foot control, I should be able to move it, and look at that, everything else follows. All right, we're almost there. Let's add some attributes to the foot control, and we pretty much finished for this tutorial. Now with the foot controls selected, I'm going to go to modify, add attribute. I'm going to create one for bank and one for foot roll. Remember, for banking, we are going to use these two joints. So let's start with that. I'm going to go to animation menu set, and I'm going to go to keys, set driven keys, set and option box. And again, this is something that we did cover in character rigging for beginners, so feel free to check it out if you're unfamiliar with that. And I'm going to select the driver, load it as the driver, select these two as driven and load them as driven. Now for the driver, we are going to target bank. For driven, let's see what axis we're going to work with. If I select the bank R, that's Z axis. And if I'm going to select bank L, that is again Z axis. Great. So with these two selected, I'm going to just select rotate Z, and I'm going to create a default set key. Now I'm going to go to foot control, bank attribute, and set maximum to 1. And let's just target L for now for maximum. And I'm going to raise the foot to -40 and set key. Then bring the bank to 0, set it to -1, and this time I'm going to target reverse foot L bank R01, and I'm going to use the same value, reciprocal value actually, 40 for that one, and I'm going to set key. Now if I select the bank control and control middle mouse, you can see the foot bank works beautifully. Excellent. Now let's quickly set up our foot chain and tie it to our foot roll attribute here. So I'm gonna reload the driver. This time I'm going to target foot roll, and let's expand the chain. The joints that I want to target is heel, toe, and ball. And I'm going to load them as driven. Now, just like what we did for the bank joints, let's go ahead and explore. This is Z-axis. What about the toe? That's Z-axis too. And how about ball? That should be Z-axis as well. Correct. Excellent. So with these three selected, I'm going to go rotate Z, and I'm going to just set a key to set a default key. Now I'm going to go to foot roll and set a maximum to, actually minimum to -1. That would be the heel roll. So I'm going to go to heel, raise the foot up to something like 40. Seems like that's our value. And set a key, select the foot control, go maximum 1. This time I'm going to select the toe roll, select the maximum. And this one seems like we can go more than -40. Let's go -50 and set a key. And as usual, I have a tendency to have a mid pose where the ball roll comes to play. So I'm going to select the foot control, give this 0.5. I'm going to go to toe roll and 0 its rotate Z, and instead select ball roll and give its rotate Z to something like -30 and set a key. I also noticed when I'm in maximum pose, this ball roll looks really weird. So let's actually fix that as well. When I'm in maximum pose, just gonna set this one to 1. I'm gonna select the ball roll and I will reduce this back to something like 10, maybe even 5, and then set a key. If I select the foot roll, that's better. Now let's go ahead and linearize our tangents using our graph editor. So our work with set driven key window is done. I'm going to bring back the graph editor and select all the tangents, press F, and you can always check to see if there's any other set driven keys available. And I'm going to select them all and just go linear. You get a much crisper result without any overshoot, ease in and ease out. Looks more precise. We managed to apply set driven key to everything, and every joint works beautifully with only 2 attributes on this sturdy reverse footlock chain. Time to do some cleanup. Now the easy part, I'm going to select all 3 IK handles, press H to hide, and I'm going to select each joint and select their draw style to none. With that, they're not hidden from the outliner, but the representation of them has been turned off. So I'm going to go and do the same thing for the rest of them. Now, this is it. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you found this tutorial useful and hope to see you in the next one.